How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of FSI's NHL DFS Preview Show. I'm your host, TK Nation 47, flying solo this evening, talking to you guys about some NHL for the Saturday slate, classic slate. This is for the 7 p.m. main slate. We have 12 games on this large, very large slate to talk about, but been researching here for the better part of the hour. I think I have nailed it down to a few really good spots where I'm sure we'll see some chalk, but I think there's some really strong plays in here that we'll go through. Let's just break down some of the matchups that we like the most, some of the higher totals and higher favorites. A lot of home favorites on this slate, a ton. I think there's only one home dog in this slate, and I think it's Seattle versus Vegas. Seattle at home, and we just we're still not over the Vegas chalk on Wednesday or Thursday, I believe, blowing up in our face. I'm still not over that. Only scoring one goal versus Chicago on a back-to-back, just absolutely mind-boggling, right? But that's why we study. We continue to get better. And hopefully we bring home some of the good money for you this weekend. No hockey on Sunday, so this is it. Let's get into the games. Arizona, Boston, 6.5-point total. Boston -350 favorite. Ottawa, Toronto, 6.5-point total. Toronto -210 favorite. Columbus versus St. Louis. St. Louis at home, 6.5-point or 6.5 over. Under and Seattle or St. Louis, -225 favorite. We also have Tampa Bay, Pitt, 6.5, Pitt -135. Montreal, Washington. Everyone that's going to like Washington tomorrow, -6.5-point total with a -278 favorite for Washington. We also have Calgary and Edmonton, the Battle of Alberta, 6.5-point total with Edmonton a -130. And as I mentioned, Vegas, Seattle, 6.5-point total. Seattle a +115 dog. All right. That'll do it for the high totals on the slate. Let's get into the picks. I'm just going to briefly run down each position here and just go through some of my favorite studs, my favorite cash play, and a few value plays, right? All right, so obviously here at the top, you can play Matthews, you can play McDavid. I think this is a really good Matthews spot. I think McDavid and Draisaitl have lower ownership going up against Calgary after everyone saw Calgary beat Colorado, and Edmonton struggle with Vancouver for a little while, and they had to really come back in that game. So I think naturally, the ownership's going to flow through Matthews and the upside that he possesses. But I do like some of the lower ownership that we're going to see on McDavid and Draisaitl. I think people are going to see Tampa and get scared of Crosby, but Tampa looked a little sluggish against Columbus tonight. So they are on a back-to-back going to Pittsburgh. It is a short bus trip, though. It's not like yes, they're playing back-to-back, but it's such close in proximity. There's not much travel time between the two. It's literally like 2.5 hours. It's not far at all. The distance between Columbus and Pittsburgh. Their game ended I'm guarantee you they're already at the hotel sleeping. It's not going to feel like much. So I'm not really scared of Tampa in that spot. And I'm also not scared to play Pittsburgh either. Yes, you could play Eichel. He kind of let us down last time out. So I think people are feeling let down. I'm going to go ahead and tell you Patrice Bergeron is the cash center on the slate against Arizona. This line with Hall and Craig Smith, very cheap. Arizona, we just saw what Pitt did to him. 2 goals, 3 assists, 20 shots on goal from line one alone. Pittsburgh versus Arizona. Arizona looks historically bad again. They were historically bad to start out last year, too. This is a failed franchise. They are moving. This team is not going to be in Arizona. This is a dead roster. Let's just take advantage of this. Patrice Bergeron, shove him into your lineups. It doesn't matter. He's already got 1 goal, 4 shots on goal, 3 blocks versus Washington to start out. He looks good. Play Taylor Hall, play Craig Smith. Line them all up. knock him down. Next up, I do like Tavares, 2 points away from 900. So around 900 watch. I think he's very viable. You could see that happen in one game. Getting a lot of starts in the offensive zone. I did notice that. So Tavares is getting a lot more offensive opportunities, skating with Nylander, excuse me, and Malgin. I don't mind him. And I don't mind, I thought this was crazy. Elias Lindholm, 5K. I know he's kind of point dependent. I know he's going to be doing a lot of defending, but man, Elias Peterson looked pretty good. Horvat looked pretty good versus Edmonton in that Vancouver matchup. Just really silly price tag here, I think, in a very fast-paced game, a very high total. I think Lindholm is a silly price tag at 5K. Other honorable mentions here at center. I do love Kuznetsov right here. I think 4,500 is way too cheap. This could be another cash play here. Montreal gave up 37 shots on goal versus Detroit tonight, 29 in their first matchup versus Toronto. You compare him with Ovi and compare him with Carlson. I think they're all pretty strong cash plays, but I really like Kuznetsov here at the center position. And then I just want to speak briefly on Robert Thomas and Ryan O'Reilly, St. Louis centerman. Columbus going to be on a back-to-back. It's going to be Merz Lincoln's in goal, I assume, but he is coming off an illness that has kept him out the first two matchups. So be cautious about Merz Lincoln's being, a wall tomorrow, but this is the first home game and first game for St. Louis on the year. So just a rough start for Columbus to start out. They got Carolina and Tampa Bay after a loss, and now the home opener for St. Louis. Just a brutal run to start the season for Columbus. And then Line gets hurt for a month. So bummed about my Blue Jackets, but hey, I mean, NHL, they did it to us. Give us another good draft pick. We're still building anyway. Johnny Hockey with his first goal of the season. We're still celebrating. Next up, let's get to wingers. That's it for the centerman. Winger, I always love to do line correlation here. So I really like to start on my slate with centers and goalies. I want to make sure I know what lines I'm stacking against the goalies that I'm not playing, or vice versa, right? But I don't mind, obviously, Kuz. You could always play Kuz. Kaprizov, and his price is getting up there. Getzel, I mean, I could honestly see very low ownership from these three here. I think Pasternak's going to have a boatload of ownership skating on that second line, but he is on the first power play unit. If you did want to be different in your Boston stacks tomorrow, I think you can go with Bergeron, Pastrnak, and Taylor Hall and just leave out Craig Smith, or just stack all three. I think that's a good way to get different with your Boston stacks, just going full power play stack and then hoping that they just bury the shit out of the Coyotes. Yeah, as I mentioned, Ovechkin, it's crazy to see him under 8K. I really like Mitch Marner. Yeah, I think it's a Marner matchup against Ottawa. I know Olufsen put in 2 empty netters, but there was another right winger that scored against Ottawa in that first matchup versus Buffalo. Buffalo put up 32 shots on goal versus Ottawa. Marner already has 6 shots on goal on the season with 2 helpers, one being on the power play. So you could see him, you could pair him up with Tavares and Matthews and get a little power play stack of Toronto versus Ottawa. I don't mind that. I think Marner has a day, couple of goals. He can blow up a slate, and I like that upside in GPPs. And you get a little bit of salary saving too down here at 7,500. I think Tarasenko is another really strong winger against Columbus. You could probably play him and Buchnevich with Robert Thomas in that first line stack. Torrey Krug maybe you can throw in there too, a defenseman for St. Louis. But I really like Senko. High shots on goal, floor, and a decent amount of upside, 2-goal upside as well. 34 goals and 48 assists on the season last year. Guy can light the lamp. Nylander, I mentioned Tavares, so you got to always go with Nylander. Jonathan Huberdeau for Calgary. I don't mind him versus Edmonton in this fast-paced matchup, skating with Lindholm and Toffoli. You can always throw in Rasmus Anderson too, frontline defenseman. So I like him. He looks pretty comfortable in Calgary. New guy on the block. They're going to tell him what it means to win this matchup versus Edmonton, especially since they bounced Calgary in the playoffs last year. I think it's just going to be a lot of goals, at least a lot of shots on goal in this matchup. It's going to be a fast-paced game. Okay, Pavelski, sure, if you want to go with Rupe Hintz and Robertson. They did just destroy Nashville. Taylor Hall, I mentioned him. Just here's another cash play. Just play Bergeron, Hall, Carlson, Kuznetsov. I mean, Boston and Washington look for really strong cash builds, and then maybe you can toss in Austin Matthews or Marner in there. But yeah, man, it's gonna. I feel on the slate already. It's feeling pretty good. Okay, down here at the bottom here for value. Oh yes, I have one guy that is above the rest. Matt Boldy, 4,500, 2 goals last time out versus the Rangers in the third period. I know it was when the Rangers were up like 6-1 or something like that, or 6-0, 5-0, and just getting the breaks beat off them at home. But I think this is a great bounce back spot for Minnesota. Going up against Jonathan Quick, 0-2 Kings. They're already starting to deal with some injuries. They sat my boy Dursey. I didn't like that against who was it that the Kings played on Thursday? Yeah, they sat Dursey versus Seattle. I didn't understand that one. And then Edvardson got hurt. So I think Minnesota could roll here. And I think Boldy is a cheap way to get exposure to the Wild. So I really like him as a just one-off high shots on goal, high goal upside for the winger position. Luke Kunin is a line one winger for San Jose. I think that game's still going on versus Carolina. Yeah, it's still in the third period. But he's going to be skating with Hurdle and Timo Meyer, so I don't mind him at 4,300. It's not a terrible price tag on him. Mangiapane, yeah, sure. All right, now we're getting just a little silly down here with some of these plays. I guess I gotta mention Danforth for Columbus. Man, he's still down here. Woo. I didn't even know much about this guy. I guess he had a really good camp and he dumped Samkos today and provided an assist, 2,600. It's not the worst in the world you could do here. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it in cash, but if you really need a punt, why not? All right, going into defender. Let's get all the way back up here. All right, one gentleman that I mentioned earlier that is my cash defenseman. That is going to be, where is he? John Carlson, 6,500. I think he is a lock and load play versus the Montreal Habs. Yeah, who just gave up, a ton of points to Mo Cedar. Six shots on goal, 2 blocks. Yeah, I don't mind going back to Mo Cedar either. He's also on this slate, but I think John Carlson is the one. No goals, no assists yet through 2 games. I think he gets off the schneid, and I think Kuz and Ovi, they're all going to be flowing, and it's going to be a good game for Washington in this matchup. Pietrangelo is pretty cheap, 6,100 for a guy with some high shots on goal and block upside. As I mentioned, Cedar, where is he? Cedar's 5,300 versus New Jersey. We just saw Tony DeAngelo. Good request there from me the first time out. Really have a strong showing in that matchup versus New Jersey with Philadelphia. Noah Dobson, I like him at 5,600 as well. Versus Anaheim. Anaheim gave up 4 assists to Seattle in their last matchup. What else here? Hampus Lindholm, 5K. There's that defender on the first power play unit for Boston. If you wanted some correlation with Patrice, Bergeron, Pasternak, and Taylor Hall, if you want to just throw Lindholm in there, just throw all 4. Hope the power play goes nuclear. I like that different way to get different with a chalky Boston stack. I think Riley was the last one I had from Toronto. I'm not sure where I can find him, his price tag. I didn't write it down. Oh, yeah, I did. 6,400 versus Ottawa. Rasmus Dahlin for Buffalo scored a goal, had 4 or 5 shots on goal for Buffalo in that matchup versus Ottawa. So I like Riley, and I like Marner. I like that power play unit and first line for Toronto tomorrow. And last but not least, let's get a little value in here. Sergachev, this guy playing him all the time, and it's working out right now. He at 3.9K, 7 blocks versus the Rangers in the first matchup, and they had 4 shots on goal and an assist versus Columbus tonight. So really like Sergachev in this matchup versus Pitt. I think he's going to face a lot of shots. I think he's going to get a lot of block shots, and there's always some shots on goal upside as well. All right, last but not least, we're talking goalies here. Swayman, sure, he's already, made the probable start. I don't think Arizona's going to get a lot of shots on goals. You're really banking on that. Shutout. Binnington in his first home matchup versus Columbus. Columbus kind of scrappy. They're not going to put up as many shots without Patrick Laine, though, so I'm a little worried about that upside. Sorokin is going to face a lot of shots versus Anaheim. I think he's going to be a lot of people's cash goalie on this slate, especially at home for the Islanders. I personally love, where is he? Marc-Andre Fleury just got destroyed in that matchup against the Rangers, giving up 6 or 7 on that slate. I think he bounces back. I love the spot for Minnesota. I think it's a big bounce back spot for Minnesota. Noah Vardsson for LA. All they have to really do is stop their boy Fiala coming home. And I think Andre is going to be able to do that. I like him. Get some salary savings too at 7,600. Oettinger for Dallas on the road. They beat Nashville 3-1. He was all right in that matchup, but 77 is not bad. I think he's a good pivot off of Andre Fleury if you're not feeling comfortable with that. Because none of these, other than Sorokin and probably Swayman, none of these studs or like even middle guys with Samsonov, if he starts, or Matt Murray, I'm sure it'll be Murray. Murray's not a terrible play, I guess, but I don't know. I like who I like. That'll wrap things up, guys. It's getting pretty late for me. Enjoy tomorrow's slate. Please like this video, comment below with any questions you may have. You can follow me on Twitter at TKNation47 or on our website at fsidfs.com. Join that Discord. Boys are always chatting it up. It's a pretty fun and active Discord for the NHL season. If you always have questions before lock, I'm always available. All right. Thank you for listening in. Enjoy the slate and have a fun weekend.